Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Sons and Daughters of Liberty. Before we get started, or as I'm sharing these links, I'd like to thank the new subscribers that have joined. Appreciate it. Those that don't know, my name is Drew. Evening Free Spirit Press. I know I haven't been on my normal schedule of videos of late, but it's mainly because we got a lot of stuff. I have a lot of stuff going on that I've been working on, in the process of working on, and it's kind of kept me from being able to do these live streams as I want to, plus working on magazine in between times. But I've been wanting to do a video, and I'm supposed to have rain for the next 4 days, so it's going to give me time to catch up on some things. For me, one of some of the issues, I talk about it a lot. All the distractions that's going on there, all the things that trend, how it, we get caught up in all that stuff, and we miss some very important stuff. I've missed some stuff even in my area that has happened locally that I didn't know about, that wasn't reported on the local news. I think it's, really important that we start realizing that. I'm going to give you an example. Yesterday, the animal comment. It was trending everywhere. Everybody was talking about it. All the major news networks were talking about it. It was a distraction because, for real, who cares? In fact, let me be quite honest. I think he used the wrong term, because we treat our animals more humanely than what the MS-13 gangs treat their victims that they behead, disembody, and scar. That's not humane, and that's just, it's just straight brutal savagery, But that's the point. Everybody, oh, he's calling. Yeah. Well, and truthfully, he kind of complimented them because they're worse than animals. But that was the trendy thing. That's all anybody wanted to talk about. Nobody wanted to talk about 3 men in Florida convicted on conspiracy to support ISIS. The Rhode Island man that violated probation because for the last 5 months he's been fighting a war in Syria. Oh, mind you, not on our side. No, they didn't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about those things. They don't want you to know that this stuff's happening here. They want you to be distracted, pitted against each other, divided. They want you to be arguing about QAnon, which I think right now is, for a lot of people, has become a huge distraction. It's ridiculous. It's a game. It's a child's game at that, what he's playing. Or she's playing, who knows? While everybody's caught up on that, let me tell you what you really missed. If those things I just mentioned didn't bother you, well, maybe this one should. About 4 or 5 months ago, when we started seeing what was happening in Europe with how they were going after people that were just posting things and charging them as criminals. Well, guess what? That's might be getting ready to happen here. I told you guys, pay attention to that. that we'll start eventually seeing that happen here. But we get caught up in the distractions. Well, that's happening over there. That'll never happen here. For those that say that, I suggest you restudy your history. Restudy our founding fathers when they formed the Constitution, the very foundings of our government, the parties that were involved. Then you'll start to see a clearer picture of things. Now, history is a very important tool that we have that's steadily and steadily every day being stripped away. Whether, oh, that statue's racist. No, that statue is a thing to memorize history so we don't repeat the past, so we don't make the same mistakes. There's nothing racist about it. They keep trying to divide you, subdivide you, force you to pick sides. Oh, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, I'm a conservative. Where next, exactly? Welcome, Rob. You know, it's a label game. All labels do is divide. Let's go one step farther. All this talk about the BS diversity. For those that don't, I'm not going to go on a long spew. I did that in my last video about diversity. But let's just put an end with diversity right now. Divide. That's what diversity is. We're not supposed to be further subjugating and separating ourselves from each other. We're supposed to be being united, not divided. Diversity divides. There's no equality in diversity. But we get caught up in all these labels. Then we want to argue with each other about who's right or wrong. We miss the real issues. You know, why we have these problems. But we allow these labels to compound on themselves to further separate us. So when we hit on the real issue, then comes the labels we choose to identify. Then comes the argument. Instead of having conversation about the real issues, we compound on the problem and create new ones. But hey, that don't happen, right? Just like they'll never criminalize online speech here in the United States. Yeah, well, there's a link in my description that's going to say otherwise. In fact, this is waiting for the governor of Maryland to sign. It was voted on and passed by Maryland's government, by their senators and statesmen, to criminalize online speech. And it is so vaguely written up, we could be talking about gun control and potentially be charged for a crime. Let's talk about unconstitutional. But here's the irony on this. Okay, so you're saying we can't talk about certain politics during midterms or elections. We could be charged as criminals. Mind you, it's even vaguer than that, but that's the general point. And I'll read the whole article to you in a second. They want to control anything we say online. They've been pushing for it and pushing for it and pushing for it all year. I've got an inbox full of every site I am on, every platform I'm on, of notifications to reread the terms of service. We've changed our policies. Whole inbox, 22 right now. And every day it seems like I get a new one. My AR identifies as a musket. Yeah, in a sense, you're all right. It's an inanimate object. But, with this law that they're waiting for the governor to sign in Maryland, if we talk about this and we mention a politician's name, we could be charged as a criminal in the name of security for online speech. That's how ridiculous it's come. Now, most people don't pay attention to what's going on in Europe. I mean, damn. Dude did something as a joke with a dog and is facing prison time. Guess what? That's coming here. Back 5 months ago, the thing I asked, how long before Europe tries to charge a U.S. citizen and demand that they deport us over to Europe to face charges. Deport's not the right word, but you know what I mean. And people's like, that'll never happen. Well, guess what? It happens. It's waiting for the governor's signature, and most people don't even know it's there. I seen somebody tweeted it, and it doesn't have hardly any likes or retweets. It's like everybody was caught up, animal. Or what happened today, tragic as it may be. And no, I'm not going to talk about what happened today. In case you guys haven't figured it out by now, when events like that happen, I prefer to wait and let things unfold. Research it. Follow the evidence. Follow what's being said before I open my mouth. One, don't like events like that. Because we live in a day and age where everybody wants to call it a false flag, a conspiracy. Then, you know what? Bad people do bad things sometimes. And sometimes the others happen. But we don't know anymore because we're so manipulated. We're so divided, pitted against each other. You know what you got to do? Independently follow it, research it. Question everything. Don't take another person's opinion, another person's views. Come up with your own. And that's the problem of today. People do it, but they can't come together and do it. We allow these labels to divide us. We allow things to become distractions when we come across these very important issues. What some of you don't get. I've tried to explain this time and time again. Excuse me. When something becomes a law, no matter what state and no matter what level, it is now a law. First time it goes to court, first time a judge rules in favor of that law, it is now on the books. It can be used by other states, including federal government, to hold that as a law until it goes through that very, very long process in which most people can't afford to go through to begin with because it's expensive, to fight it all the way up to the Supreme Court and have the Supreme Court hear it. Then there's states like Ohio could care less what the Supreme Court says. They will not change their law. And every year the Supreme Court is bombarded and has to rule on the same way every time, telling Ohio that's unconstitutional, you can't do it, but they will not change the law here in the state. For those that are wondering what I'm talking about, our prison system, those that get locked up, since I believe it was 95 or 6 when they implemented it, they implemented the old federal law, where there's no more parole or stuff like that. There's no more, basically it's a minimum maximum sentencing, where you do day for day, this, that. But when you get out, this is where it's unconstitutional. Say you were sentenced to 5 years. You did You didn't get early release and ended up doing 5 years. Well, on top of that 5 years, you will be put on probation. Mind you, you maxed your sentence out. Under the old law, if you maxed your sentence out, you were a free man. And the feds got rid of this new law. They got rid of this law because it was deemed unconstitutional. But the state of Ohio keeps it in play. And no judge besides the Supreme Court will ever rule against the state law. It always got to go to the Supreme Court. So therefore, it stays a law. A couple other states tried to pick up on it, do the same thing. But every year, the Supreme Court terminates probation, has to reward people because they get sent back. See, that 5-year sentence could turn in and be another 2.5 years, because they could be sent, if they violate probation, they could be sent back to up half their time. So therefore, they're not sentenced to 5 years, they're actually sentenced to 7.5 years. Even though in the courtroom, they're sentenced to 5 years with however amount of probation that ties into it, up to 5 years. But the state ignores the Supreme Court. But then you see other states seeing that Ohio was doing this, and they tried to pick up the same law. Why? Because it's on the books. Why? Because regular judges and federal judges have ruled that it's all right, even though the Supreme Court has ruled time and time again, 1,000 cases every year, more than 1,000, that it's unconstitutional. That's why the feds no longer practice the same law, because the feds were told it was unconstitutional. But most people don't understand that. They think, well, that's just that state law. Or it's just, oh, it's a state. Or, no, once it becomes a law, other people can reference it and cite it and refer it and give their interpretation of it. To where if people don't take a stand when it first comes up, it passes, the governor signs it, or the president signs it, and you're screwed. Because the lengthy process you have to go through, most people can't afford to even follow it to the federal court level. Unless you get lucky and some organization picks it up and does it for you. Now imagine if one state decides to pass a law to where if you talk about, even theoretically, about elections, politicians, or let's say gun control, or question a poll, you could be charged as a criminal. This opens the door for so much more, because it was so vaguely written, so left up to interpretation. I will read some of it to you here in a bit, that people are going to, other states are going to see this. Oh, we can control this. I mean, right now, on Facebook, on Twitter, on many of the platforms, we're already seeing control during midterm elections. Because they're scattered throughout between now and November. The other day, I knew there was elections going on in a couple of states. Next thing I know, my Twitter feed's all screwy. I'm not getting recent tweets. I'm getting an hour ago, 20 minutes ago, yesterday, 2 days ago. I had to scroll down through 11 of them before I got one that was tweeted 35 seconds ago. Underneath all that. Then another 10 more before I got to the next one. Then finally, a recent tweet. Oh, wait, it wasn't recent. It was 20 minutes ago because I commented on it. It's like, conveniently, this is the first tweet that's popping up. That's supposed to be a recent tweet. They're controlling what we are seeing now. So people are talking about political stuff or talking about stuff they don't want. They're messing with the feed, so that falls in between stuff that was from days ago. You know, you scroll past 3 or 4, it's like, oh, I guess nobody's tweeted anything. And, you know, scroll down any farther, and guess what? You missed something. Because this is where I found this article. I almost missed it. But it's happening like that on all platforms. And it's ridiculous. It's another form of censorship. You know, we got to stop getting caught up on the trending stuff. We got to stop letting them distract us. Because the bottom line, this little law here is quite damning. Maryland lawmakers voted to criminalize online speech in the name of security. Members of the Maryland House of Delegates convened at Maryland State House in Annapolis, Maryland. More than 1,000 students gathered at Maryland State Capitol in March as part of a national March for Our Lives demonstration against school shootings. Presumably, these students used the internet, social media, or mobile device apps to organize their rallies. In so doing, they may have committed a crime under an obscure Maryland law. Did you guys catch that? In so doing, they may have committed a crime under the obscure Maryland law. Let me ask you something. Where's the crime? Because that is fully protected under their constitutional rights to peacefully assemble and gather, to peacefully protest, freedom of speech. This is not Europe. We have a constitution that's supposed to protect us. Okay, let's continue on. Instead of fixing this flawed speech law, the Maryland General Assembly recently passed a bill to reenact and expand it. The legislation purports to counter foreign online political propaganda, but in reality, the new burden it would place on Marylanders' internet speech threatens our First Amendment rights. Governor Larry Hogan of R should veto the bill. At issue is HB 981, the so-called Online Electioneering Transparency and Accountability Act. If signed into law, the bill would reenact the state's existing regulations of campaign material. The term includes any material transmitted by or appearing on the internet or other electronic medium that relates to a prospective candidate, ballot measure, or prospective bailout measure. If you think about it, it includes just about anything. All campaign materials must include a disclaimer with the name and addresses of the person or group responsible for the material. Let me just sign my name to this knowing that I'm going to violate a law so you can come and arrest me. Funny how they implement that. Campaign materials deemed in support or in opposition to a candidate must include a longer disclaimer stating who did and did not authorize or approve the message. Violations are punishable by up to a year in jail, a $1,000 fine, or both, regardless of whether a violation was inadvertent or intentional. So you accidentally talked about it, you can still be charged. Oh yeah, censorship at its finest, right. The Maryland law is vague and overbroad. By regulating discussions of any issue that relates to a candidate, elected official, or even some theoretical ballot measure that hasn't been proposed yet. Wait, I can't talk about something that may never be proposed? Or that may 2 years, 3 years from now be proposed? I can't talk about it theoretically? Wait, something wrong with that. And if I do so, I can be charged and fined? Now, what happens to having your own view and opinion? So my own views and opinions on something you're saying I can't have? That I could be charged, jailed for a year, up to a year, and fined $1,000? So much for free thought. The law possesses a threat to political free speech in the most vibrant medium today, the Internet. For example, online discussions about gun control could relate to any elected official who has ever taken a position on it. Refer to, but not naming, is what that's saying. Because you refer to a certain thing, they're saying that you're referring to a certain person that had weighed in on the measure that is a political official. Even though you may not even be referring to it. In fact, you probably wouldn't. You may not even know that person was tied to it. But that could be a criminal offense now. Theoretically, right? Oh, wait, I theoretically said it could be, so therefore I've committed a criminal act. I mean, essentially, just reading this article and talking about it, I have theoretically committed a crime. Because I had a view and opinion on an unconstitutional matter. Oh, wait, I said unconstitutional. So any politician that had opposed this, even though I'm not referencing them by name, I have violated their law. You guys see how stupid this is? How moronic? I mean, but how many people actually know? Well, maybe 40 people that subscribe to me will know about it, and a couple that I've shared it with, and a couple that actually retweeted it. But no, we want to talk about animal. See the distraction. But mind you, let's pay attention. Where is Maryland located? What's next to Maryland? See the significance? How long before one of our corrupt politicians in Congress decide to, I like this, nobody want to oppose, so let's use this. It's already been passed. No one's opposed it. Ah, now you see the danger of not paying attention to what's going on and not pointing these things out and taking a stance on these things when they first pop up. Because once that governor, if he signs it, he may not. I'm a betting man and say he will, or she will, whatever he, oh, it's got to be a he, I think. But you know, got to be politically correct these days, or you'll offend somebody. In this land of diversity that they keep pushing and want us to believe in. But shall we continue on? For example, online discussion, okay, I read that part. Consider also that the law could have regulated speech about the 2015 death of Freddie Gray while in Baltimore police custody, which related to Mayor Stephanie Rawlins Blake, the political discussion surrounding that led to her deciding against seeking re-election should it have been punished under this law. We need more speech about such matters, not less. Yet how many Marylanders speaking on social media about these issues understand that they face jail time if they fail to include the disclaimer required by the bill and law? You know what I want to know? Why are they making a big deal about all these stupid midterm video ads on TV that I'm seeing? But they want to censor my free speech? And, oh wait, they pay for that. The DNC and the RNC, they pay to have that stuff. Or the private organizations that sponsor them pay for that. So therefore, that's not illegal. They don't consider them an everyday citizen. Hence, we go back to the Supreme Court's ruling that a corporation is not a U.S. citizen. Therefore, the Constitution does not apply to a corporation. Such an expansive reading of the Maryland law also is not far-fetched. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit took exception to similarly worded Nevada law. Like Maryland, Nevada requires disclaimers for any material information relating to an election candidate or any question on a ballot. The court held this requirement was unconstitutionally overboard, as it could cover discussions of any number of issues and was not limited to election advocacy or even discussions of specific candidates or ballot measures. It is bad enough that HB 981 would reenact Maryland's unconstitutional speech law, but the bill would make matters even worse by imposing a whole host of additional reporting and record-keeping requirements. The requirements cover any so-called campaign materials that are paid or promoted for a free on website or online platforms, even if the paid promotion goes to only a tiny group of one social media connection. Bizarrely, speakers must declare whether their speech supports or opposes a candidate or ballot issue, even if the content does neither. Detailed information about the message would have to be kept for review by bureaucrats at the State Board of Elections. Citizens and lawmakers understandably are concerned about hostile foreign interests trying to influence American voters over the internet. Really? I can't tell because you're passing laws that don't affect international. You're passing laws to subjugate and strip us of the U.S. citizens' constitutional rights. This has nothing to do with international problems. This has everything to do is you want to control the narrative. It's our narrative. What we say is the truth, and be damned what anybody else says. We don't even want you looking into it. You don't have the right to research it and prove me wrong. That's what this is saying. Man, does that sound like, that sounds vaguely Hitler-esque. That vaguely sounds like something a dictator that does to control his people. And we don't have a dictator. Well, maybe we do. Maybe we have many dictators. And we call them congressmen, statesmen, judges. And you can name any of the alphabet gangs that you want. But expended and overboard laws that burden and hinder free speech are not the answer. By eroding this cornerstone of our democracy, HB 981 plays straight into the hands of an autocratic foreign agenda. And it very much so does. Sorry guys, I was reading so I wasn't paying attention to chat. But this is what they've been hitting us with. While we're distracted, while we're focusing on, oh, Trump called MS-13 animals. Well, I actually got to disagree with Trump. They're not animals. They're far worse. Because we treat our animals more humanely than what MS-13 gang members treat the people that they rape, disembody, behead, and murder. They're far worse than animals. They are the true scum of the earth. But that's what they want to say, oh, he's calling human beings animals. Well, as human beings, we treat animals more humanely than we sometimes treat other humans. Let's just keep the facts straight. You know, just like the gun debate. The gun in itself has never killed it. It's the idiot behind it that has his mind set on doing something bad. Yes, so do I, but don't dare say that online what I think about that. Oh, wait. Anybody know the story of Vlad the Impaler? Just saying. Actually, I disagree there, Free Spirit. That's too nice. That's being humane. That's being merciful. You know, here I was struggling for the last, I don't know, week or so, coming up with articles in the magazine. And all this pops up. And it's stuff that I haven't been talking about in a while. You know, there for a while, last year I was doing non-trending news, where I was talking about such things as cases like 3 men in Florida being arrested and charged for conspiracy for supporting ISIS. You know, the things that the previous administration said, oh, that don't happen here. But come to find out it was happening here. It was under sealed indictments and sealed court cases that after he was no longer in office, people started stumbling across him, got him unsealed, and come to find out it was happening in many states. We had a problem that the American people didn't even know about. Because why? That administration was controlling the whole narrative. Nope, that don't happen here, and you won't talk about it. Nothing to see here. When in fact, there's so much to see here when you quit paying attention to stupid QAnon posts. That, oh, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say HC? Yep, you know, well, it's home command to me. Home command. You know, it could be anything. But it's what's the most out there. It's what's been most thrown in your face. What you've been bombarded with for over a year. So that's the first thing that pops into your mind when you see abbreviated letters. I'm not even going there. If you haven't woke up to the trick and what's going on, maybe it's best you never wake up at all, because you're in for a very shocking reality check. But on the other side, I do enjoy some of the stuff QAnon posted when I've got free time and I'm bored, because sometimes you'll come across a gem that's actually worth talking about. You know, and I've talked about this. Lock her up. Yeah, we kind of seen how that played out in a couple other countries. When you start getting what you wish for, we fail to realize they've got us so divided right now. Always arguing about our labels, that we forget that she has supporters. And that would cause a civil unrest. And that same thing would happen to anyone. Let's impeach Trump. Oh, yeah. Well, we all know what that could lead to. Yep, very same thing. Why? Because we're that divided. And it's obvious. We still adhere to red, blue. We don't care what the message they're saying. It's a red candidate, so we have to vote for him. Oh, it's a blue candidate. We have to vote for him. Red's evil. Blue's good. Blue's evil. Red's good. They're all corrupt. Almost every last one of them. And the ones that aren't, guess what? They don't get elected. Why? Because they don't make the statistical percentage to share the stage with the top 15%. So their message isn't heard. Let's talk about influencing elections, shall we? They've been doing it for years, decades. And almost everybody creates that division. They divide that line and won't step over it. Then when somebody gets smart and decides to use the internet for what it was designed for, to reach millions and millions of people, oh, now it's a security problem. Because they don't want the common everyday citizen to become an elected official. That's what it boils down to. That's why we're seeing the push for all this control. It has nothing to do with the fucking Russians did it. Our very own Republican and Democratic Party did it. And that's a fact. They do it all the time. When they tell a man, you cannot come on this stage and be part of these debates because you don't have the percentage. You are therefore influencing an election. This whole censorship crap has nothing to do with Pizzagate, has nothing to do with Trump. Well, actually, it has everything to do with Trump for what he did. It has nothing to do with conspiracy theorists, gun control activists, nothing. It has to do with fear. They fear that an average day citizen, that homeless beggar on the corner, could become an elected official and make change. All because they can use these social media platforms and spread their message. I'm shocked they haven't went and tried to remove the write-in ballots. Maybe I should have kept quiet on that one. But you guys, that's the big picture. That's why they want us so divided. That's why they want us so distraction. So when crap like this comes up and goes in front of the governor without appeal or approach from the citizens, oh, this state has this law and it's worked, so why don't us as congressmen in the federal district adopt the same law? It went through without approach or so much as protest. That's why it's so important to pay attention to what is going on that isn't a trending event. What's going on in your very backyards, in your states, and communities. And at the same time, we got to pay attention to what's going into our federal government. How are they trying to dick us, screw us? Let me tell you a little nasty secret about the little gun debate. You know why Congress hasn't moved to do anything? And most people say, oh, it's because of midterms. It has nothing to do with midterms. They're letting the states do the dirty work for them. And once these regulations and laws pass in the states, since it'll take months to years before those laws get seen in front of the Supreme Court, they'll say, oh, see, all this went unopposed. It worked in these states, so let's use these laws and examples from the states and adapt them into our own policies and create a federal law for it. Which in turn, like I was talking about Ohio, and becomes they're passing unconstitutional legislation, unconstitutional laws. We cannot stand idly by. We cannot be quiet on matters such as this. We got to learn when something's a distraction to call it for what it is. Start looking elsewhere for things locally or things that spring up out of nowhere. Because those are the things that they don't want us to see. They want us to only see, here, let me give you something shiny. Let me give you this huge, shiny ruby the size of your hand. While you're staring at that in disbelief at how rich you just became, I'm going to do this. I'm going to pass this law that strips you of this freedom. I'm going to pass this law that strips you of this freedom. And you're still staring at that shiny ruby in your hand that your internet's become. That's what these trending things are. That's that shiny object that distracts you, that pulls you in. So you miss the real important issues. You miss the stuff that can bring change about in your own lives, that could lead to further awakening, further understanding, to where you can look at Q's crap and actually find talking points in it. I mean, let's talk about the one thing that no major media wants to talk about. I'm bringing this up because I want to kind of hammer on Twitter for a second. You know, this is where I actually commend Pizzagate, especially those that pointed out these facts, that we have human sex trafficking going on, human smuggling going on in this country. We've had so many roundups, so many people arrested on sex trafficking, child pornography. Here in the U.S., that don't get reported on. Why? That should be mainstream news. a wake-up call. How many missing children have ended up in this trade? For those that haven't read the magazine, you should read it. It's around in the newsverse. When the Children Cry. Read that. The amount of missing children that are missing right in your own backyards. You know, this is something B. Rich pointed out back when Pizzagate first came around. He was one of the first people I heard talk about this. You know, how many of these very kids that come up missing, come up abducted, are being put into these child pornography rings, sex trafficking rings, human trafficking rings? Exactly. But yet nothing on the news. Here's an a really outstanding or outlandish number for you. Close to 5,000. That's how many have been arrested since Trump took office here in the United States. Almost every day there's a sting operation going on. Sometimes you get lucky and you'll see a post, somebody talk about it on Twitter, on YouTube, somebody will do a video, and it quickly just gets right, GPS watches and Kevlar backpack. I mean, you guys don't realize how much freedom you've given away. Everything we have to hit accept on, you're giving your freedom away. As soon as you turn that cell phone on, as soon as you turn these computers on, turn that smart TV on, you're allowing people in your house. If you don't believe me, well, I'll give you another story of the day. Which, we all know this. We shouldn't have to ever be repeating this. This shouldn't be shocking news. We should all realize this. Mind you, we're going to be back in the Maryland, Baltimore area once more with this little next article. Well, maybe. Oh, shit. Yeah, it does help if I click on the right thing. We'll get to that topic in a second. I just stumbled across another one. Oh, where is it at? Spy devices which track phones, intercepts calls, found all over D.C. And this is not D.C. New York has them. You go down the interstate, they got them all the way down the interstates. Just by turning accept on, by accepting the terms of services. You know, like I said, I've got over 20 new updates for terms of service. I just got another one for Twitter today. Like the third one. And you read all that stuff that you're going to have to spend hours and hours, weeks and weeks, reading through every little detail, going through the fine print, how much is it left up for interpretation, which almost all of it's left up for interpretation, so you're screwed. Oh, wait, the reason all this has happened is because the government has passed a law that requires all platforms to update their terms and services, to make changes, all in the name of security, all because, what? Election meddling, or people that are talking about things that goes against what others deem is not news, that should be news, like the sex trafficking and all the raids and sting operations that's happened. But wait, you talk about that, we're going to put you on a list. or you're unsafe. But yet, and this pisses me off. Excuse me. Wednesday night, somebody had retweeted a tweet, and this should piss anybody off that's on Twitter, of this page, profile on Twitter, that was claiming to be, adult porn, that you needed to be 21 years old or older to view the content on his stuff. You know what the content was? Had nothing to do with adults. That's right, child pornography on Twitter. The guy that had reported it and posted had reported it, and that page was still up after 2 days of the first report. But wait, there's laws in place that, we can't take evidence. And this is something I want you guys to understand. When you come across something like that, do not screen capture. Because if you have that as what you're potentially saying is evidence on your computer, by law, you are just as guilty for having it as the people that put it up on the website. But by the same law, let me ask you this. Why isn't Twitter being held responsible? Because they're allowing that type of content, that sick content, on Twitter. But yet, all you can do is report it. Oh, well, no, I went and reported it, along with almost 2,000 other people. Why is it still there? Why was I being able to see that page profile on Twitter? Well, let's report it. Okay. Wait, they don't even give you a section for child pornography. Graphic images? Okay. To my amazement, how can you report something for what it is if you don't even give a section to report it as that? Hats off to YouTube. At least YouTube gives you a section for that. Yes, after that I went start checking. Oh, what's up? That should be the number one thing. You see that should be reported. But yet, no. It's not the first case of it. Last year there was another case. And people were sharing the video around. No, you don't do that. I didn't retweet the link because, well, hey, you do that, guess what? Potentially, you could be charged. See how they make the laws? They make it so if you do anything, they want to scare you. They don't want you to be reporting that content. Because if you do, well, where's your proof? Well, yeah, if I show you proof, you're going to lock me up. The proof is, here's the link. Go look at it for yourself. In fact, why didn't Twitter immediately shut that page down? They're so quick to censoring everybody else that has an opinion and view on something. And that's the part that pisses me off and gets my blood boiling. You allow this type of content? Do you want to censor me? You want to say I don't have the right to have my own opinions and views, to question things, to be a free thinker? But yet, you support child pornography. Yeah, I got a problem with that. Just like I got a problem with Maryland's online speech in the name of security. I got a problem with this whole idea of censorship. unconstitutional. I don't need to go any farther than that. Which is another reason why I had made the decision to go with the magazine. Even though I know it's in its early stages and it's going to take a few months before I get people to start contributing, so it means a lot more work for me, which unfortunately I didn't mean for this to happen. It's also affecting the channel right now. I didn't think it would, but it did. And it's also getting, well, it's getting warmer, but we can't get past this little trend for the last 3-4 weeks at 2-3 nice days. Then 4 to 5 days of rain in a row. Then I had writer's block. Figure that out. Person that's got so much to say all the time with writer's block. And I think the problem is wasn't doing the videos to get things out of my head and everything. You got so much got in there that I'm focusing on so many things. And that's the word. I distracted myself. Why? Because I follow so many things that sometimes I need a reminder. Take a break, go for a walk, clear your mind, or do ramblings of the chaotic mind to just rant about whatever comes to mind. To clear your mind. You know, just like the other day. And I mentioned this. One of my friend's dad, like I said, he's like a dad to me. I haven't seen him since 98, I think. It was the last time I seen him. We lost touch, but touched over the years. And it's somebody I've been wanting to talk to for a long time. Finally found out where he lived, connected him with on Facebook. We were talking. You know, he's in his 60s. But he was pointing out the very same things you hear me talking about. That's a good point. Well, that requires to have. But then he brought up something that I didn't know had happened. And it's not even 20 minutes from my house. That the Bryan City schools in the last week had 2 bomb threats called into the school. That didn't make local news. That was the first I was hearing about it, and it happened right in my own backyard. You know, we get caught up in a lot of stuff. There's a lot of important things going on. There's a lot of activities going on. We need to realize that a lot of the stuff that's going on, we don't need to categorize and subcategorize. They all fall under one important issue, our Constitution. Falls under the category. It's our very freedoms that are being taken away. You know, there's so many important issues out there right now. Rob, I know we talked about one last night, which I seen that the Watauga Democrat actually had an article about teachers. There was a rally that they had, and I can't remember how many numbers of teachers went to it, because they wanted better pay. Just not better pay, they wanted more money coming into the school so they can help teach kids, have the things that the kids need. And yes, better pay. Our teachers are very underpaid, just like our cops are very much underpaid. And those are real important issues that always get overlooked, always get put on the back burner. Let me tell you something. While they're bullshitting talking about there's a gun problem with our schools, there's a big problem with our schools. Almost Every week we hear of 1 to 3 cases of a teacher sleeping with a student or having sexual contact with a student. There's no place for that in our schools in this day of age, and any day of age. Our school system is very broken right now and needs much attention. It needs Common Core removed out of it. We need to get teachers that are qualified to teach, who love teaching, who want to teach kids how to be adults. Right. And how many other schools out there like that? Like Rob just said, yeah, my kid's class doesn't even have enough chairs for all 12 of the kids. You know, there's so many real important issues, but we want to get caught up in all these labels that we put ourselves in, all these things that are meant to divide us, and we overlook the most important issues. We might hint on them, but then we'll start arguing about, well, I'm liberal, so I don't believe in this, or I'm conservative, I don't believe in this part. When screw what your label tells you to believe, because that is the problem right now. Our kids are not getting the education they need. They're not being taught real history. They're being taught diversity is cool. We need diversity. We need transgender. We need to make sure that racism is important in their education. Instead of teaching them that we are all Americans, that we are all human beings, that we live in a beautiful country that has something called the Constitution that protects your rights, that where everybody is to be equal. Now, they don't want to teach that to the kids. They want to teach them to be diverse, to hang a label on themselves. Sweet, good job, Rob. Rob says, so we went and bought them some cool beanbag chairs. That's where the community steps in, like what Rob did, steps in and helps schools out. But the problem is, that's supposed to be the state's job. That's supposed to be the federal government's job to make sure these schools have those things. We got all kinds of important issues. But yet all it's going to be on the news is gun violence in schools. It's the only thing they want to focus on, instead of focusing on the real issue, that we have underpaid teachers, we have schools that aren't getting the money that they deserve. Well, why do we have that? Well, in some cases, some schools chose to participate in Common Core, and the people out there said, screw you. We're not supporting any levy you put in until you change stop teaching Common Core. Which means we've got the wrong individuals on the school board. Nice. Well, she's a teacher. She loves the kids. She knows the importance of teaching. And there's many people out there that do. They want the best because they realize that our kids, pay attention to this, our kids are the future of this country. They're going to be the future politicians. Here in 10, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, the very same thing that we call snowflakes are going to be running this country. And you guys know my opinion on snowflakes. I mean, they should be happy to be called that because it means they're unique. No snowflake is alike. They're all unique and different. There's no one snowflake that is the same. But that's me being nerdy and know some science when it comes to snowflakes. Right. I mean, here's a point. Rob just made a good point. This teacher he knows only makes $36K a year. I know restaurant cooks and people that work in restaurants that make more than $36K a year. How is it in a restaurant full-time employee can make more than a teacher? You guys see a problem there? You see why a lot of our schools are the way they are? Because we got teachers that, I'm only making $36K a year. I'm not going to bust my ass. Why? But we don't, and I'm not saying that for all because there's many, many out there. Like the person we're talking about now, I don't actually know the person's name. Yeah, has a master's degree, only getting $36K a year for a teacher. Figure that one out. But they should be getting paid more. Our schools should be way better than what they are. But yet, we don't talk about those things because we're so caught up on everything else. That's kind of why I kind of did stop doing a few things, talking about certain things. And I want to focus on these issues. These are the important things. Getting back to basics. Getting back to where we got derailed somewhere. And here's the killer part is, this is something me and Rob also talked about last night. This teacher can go over to another country and make 10 times the amount of money as a teacher. Why is that? Personally, I feel for him because if this person can go over to, let's say, I don't know, Ireland, Britain, Brazil, and make twice, if not 5 times the more money to teach and do what they love, guess what? If they're being paid the way they should and they love the job, they're going to put that much more into it. And guess what? The kids that they teach are getting that much more of an education. And a lot of this, it starts in the schools because a lot of the stuff that I talked about tonight, we were taught in school. But guess what? Kids today, they're not being taught this in school. They're being taught diversity, but yet they're not being taught the diversity push is not even from the United States. It's actually Agenda 2030 narrative. But that's what they want to push on our kids here in our school system. Instead of pushing the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, our real history, no matter how dark it may be. Because, yes, it is dark. I'm willing to bet if we go back a few decades or a few centuries and ask the Indians about the white man, bet you they would have called us far worse than animals for what we did. That's part of our history. It's something that we understand through war and how nations grow and rise. They conquer the previous people in the world. And they create their own governments, their own cultures. And they integrate, or not integrate, they assimilate the conquered into their wow, 500 a day. Yeah, I told you about the same scenario. My sister went back in 2000, 2001, when she was back in Brazil. She was getting paid 500 a day with no degree to teach English on a military base in Brazil. Now imagine if she had a degree. Why is it a teacher can get paid more in Scotland than our teachers here in the United States? But yet we want to talk about all the other things. The Russians did it. That's it. Let's blame it on the Russians. You haven't figured that one out yet? We always got to have a boogeyman to blame. We have a boogeyman and we don't have to face the real issue. We can create a fake reality and an illusions to hide within and not face the facts. Not face the facts that our government has become so corrupt. But yet, wait, let's point things out in history. Suggest you study the rise and fall of Rome, rise and fall of the Senate. Believe it or not, a lot of our ideology of politics, government, is based on the Roman ideology of it, the concepts, the Senate, the Republic. We've seen how that fell because of corruption and greed and infighting. We want to talk about slavery, but yet history teaches us the true lesson of slavery, that it didn't matter what your skin color was. Romans took slaves no matter what the skin color was. China took slaves no matter what the skin color was. Africa sold their own into slavery. The first slave plantation owner here in the United States was a black man. We want to talk about slavery? We want to use that to keep this division going? Well, let's use the truth with it. Those are the things that should be taught in school. Real history, the real truth. Yes, this is the new Roman Empire. We call it, very much so, we call it the Republic. We still have coliseums to this day. We still have the sports, the distractions, the games, the gladiators. We just call it football, soccer, hockey, racing, MMA, wrestling, and all the other mumble jumble that we call sports. And we fail to use those as, hey, perfect opportunity to meet new people, talk, share our views and opinions while enjoying a distraction. We turn that distraction into a chance to open new minds, reach new people, and have fun at others' expense because they think we're there to be distracted, when in actuality, we can be using it to educate. come to that time where we have to wake up to what's really going on. Stop letting them distract us with trending things or irrelevant things. Oh, he called MS-13 animals. Well, I'd have used much more colorful language to describe them, because we treat animals way better than what MS-13 gang members treat the people that they murder and victimize. At least we show we show more humanity to animals than we show to humans in most cases. But hey, I'm gonna wrap this up because I know somebody, I know a few people that's getting ready to, their streams will be starting up here in about a few minutes in an hour or so, and I know a few of my viewers are probably going to tune in over there. But guys, you got to start thinking about things. You got to start paying more attention and paying less attention to what's trending. There's so many very important issues that need our attention. There's so many issues that's coming after our very constitutional freedoms that keep getting slipped through every time a distraction comes up. You know, there's days like today where my philosophy over quality over quantity has a tendency to bite me. I personally feel this is an important message, but I don't have the numbers that other people have because I don't believe in it. I don't do this for the numbers. I do it for the interaction, putting it out there. My belief is those that are meant to see this will find it. And the fact is I get more views than what the statistics show me. But it's not about that. It's about continuing to talk about these issues. Making people question things, realize things. You know, I have a lot of respect for people out there that do this. Even the ones I don't agree with on the way they do things, because they have a message. You know, it's up to us to interpret, to understand, to question these things. None of us have all the right answers. Well, you know, we're human. We make mistakes. Sometimes we're wrong. You know, like me, I've chosen not to talk about certain subjects. For the past 6 months, I've refused, well, not 6 months, about 4 or 5 months now, refused to post anything that has to do with shooting incidents. Why? Because it's become so popularized. It's everywhere. And it's just one solid narrative that trumps anything anybody's talking about that's trying to protect a Second Amendment right, because it's in your face. That's, you know, talk about psychological impact of the news. Something they put in your face all the time. We wonder why the events keep happening. Stop glorifying them. They're tragic. Doesn't mean don't research them. Doesn't mean don't question it. But it needs to not be trending anymore. It needs to be taken out of its limelight. And it needs the parents out there to sit down with your children and have a discussion about guns and violence. That needs to start at the home, not the school level, not on the news, not on social media. It needs to be done in your homes. Tell them the consequences. Because some people will call things in as a joke. Or, as we see, some people, they just get sick and tired of it and they see, oh, it's been glorified so much. Well, shit, I'll just go out in a blaze of glory, get all this media attention. Everyone's psyche is different. But when it's always in your face, it's just the things our kids are seeing. Start talking about these things with your kids. Because I tell you what, they're not being taught these things in the school. In fact, they're being taught a completely different narrative. We've seen that narrative. We need to start teaching our kids to question everything. Because 20 years from now, 30 years from now, those might be our future politicians. They might be our future leaders. And if they don't know how to question things now, if they believe everything they're taught is to be true, we're in for a world of trouble. It's time to start bringing these core discussions into our homes. Teaching the dangers of labeling yourself, the dangers of a false ideology of diversity, political agenda, identity politics, or whatever colorful labels we want to use. Or else, the future might not be so bright for us. When the future generations become the leaders. Just food for thought. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Yeah, I know I rambled on for quite a little bit tonight. But you kind of get that where I don't do videos in about a week. But I can catch you on the next one. You guys have a safe weekend and enjoy it. Good night, all.